Welcome in Louisiana to At the Book live here on bet.nola.com, brought to you by Caesars Sportsbook. That is where the man to my left, Devin Jackson, is right now, the Caesars Sportsbook inside Harrah's, New Orleans. The man to my right is Jim Derry, the sports betting writer for bet.nola.com. I am the sports betting director and your humble host on this Thursday afternoon as we get set for one of the biggest weekends of the football calendar, the final weekend of the NFL regular season. The playoffs will be decided, the final playoff spots, the final division winners, including whether the New Orleans Saints can sneak into the NFC playoffs at what has been the end of what has been just a tremendously difficult season for them to get into the playoffs. I think a victory in and of itself if they could do it. Now, we'll talk about that and how likely it is. And then also, to wrap up the weekend, Monday night, you've got this college football playoff championship game, Georgia versus Alabama, from the familiar confines of Indianapolis. Kind of strange, but that's where they will play it, and that's where the national championship for 2021 will be decided. So, guys, it's good to have you in. And what are you thinking on this Thursday afternoon, Jim?
I'm thinking that I made it just in time because I've spent all day studying for that FCS championship. That it took me a while to get on. I just made it on. I just finished my handicap. Everything's good. I made it just in time.
All right, we will not have a section later on FCS championship prop bets, but I will have you know that when we talk about big bucks at the end of the show, the top pick for one Devin Jackson is the FCS championship game. So, Devin, I know what you're looking forward to.
Yep, biggest game of the year for FCS, and the other championship game that doesn't get talked about as much as the college football playoff, but definitely looking forward to that game. I think it's going to be one of the better ones we see in the past few years because I do think Montana State actually matches up pretty well with North Dakota State, so I think it's going to be a really good game.
All right, we promise we'll only talk a little bit about that the rest of the way, but I actually do like that because it starts the weekend, and you go through a little bit of football withdrawal. LSU played Tuesday night, if you can even call that a real football game. They had half a roster. That was pretty dull. And beyond that, it's been since Sunday, Monday night game was kind of dull too. Since Sunday we had football. Now, Saturday morning before the NFL starts up, you get the FCS championship game. So it kind of whets your appetite there. I like it. Speaking of wetting, well, you could. How late? I mean, you send emails at 2:30 in the morning. I don't do that.
Hey, you got to send them while it's on your brain or you forget.
That's right.
When you get old, when you get old, you send them when you send them.
Speaking of whetting your appetite, mobile betting is coming to Louisiana. We promise it is. All indications still that it is coming this month, later in January, possibly as soon as next week. And so we want you to be ready, and we've got a special deal for you to do that. NOLA.com/Caesars. Sign up today. Download the app today. Deposit some money if you want to. You can wait for the live launch if you want to deposit the money. Otherwise, you can just get the app ready. That allows you to peruse the lines, look at it, get familiar with the app, so that when mobile goes live, you can bet right away. And by the way, you get a $100 free bet when you do that. And some more bonuses to come, by the way. So sign up now, NOLA.com/Caesars. That's our partner. We've got some special deals from them for you. So use the promo code NOLA1 or just go to NOLA.com/Caesars and get that fired up today. Other stuff going on. We've got Cashing In with Carville. We've got Beat the Pros, which Leah Van is our pro, and she is going to pick the college football championship game. And go online. You beat her, you can win a weekend right there at Harrah's Hotel and Casino where Devin is located. And for Cash In with Carville, we've got 2 weeks left, this week and next week. So let's start there. Let's get right into it. Let's get James Carville's picks here on this Thursday. You can go to NOLA.com/cashing-in. These games are live and ready to be picked right now. Got to pick them by Saturday morning because that FCS championship game is number one.
Got to do that.
All right. Here's Cashing In with Carville for this week. Welcome into Cashing In with Carville for Thursday, January the 6th. James is here, and we are ready for the new year. James, how has the new year treated you so far?
Well, today couldn't be a more beautiful day down there. It's superb, and it's been good. I wish this virus was going away and we wasn't seeing these kind of staggering numbers we are, but it's what it is, and life in a time of cholera.
Yeah, that's maybe 2022 is the year we can get back to whatever normal is.
I'm hoping. By the way, that basketball win against Kentucky. I was telling a friend of mine, if LSU's an all football school, I think people were more excited about beating Kentucky than they were depressed by losing to Kansas State. I think everybody thought that was a kind of throwaway game.
It sure seemed that way. Yeah.
I know I was excited during the basketball game, I got to tell you.
Imagine another year in LSU history where people would keep the basketball game on and not worry about missing the first 5 minutes of the football game. Like that's got to be a first. It's
got to be. I don't know what it says, but it says Mark Kelly's got a little bit. I mean, Brian Kelly's got a little bit of a hole to dig us out of here. He will. I promise you.
And it says Will Wade's got things rolling for the basketball program too.
He does. But their defense, I mean, they could have one of the three best defenses in the country. I mean, I don't know how many times they took the ball away from Kentucky, but it was a lot. A lot.
Yeah. It was an exciting game. I think it was 16-1 run in the second half. And I was looking actually while we're on the topic. LSU still only 8-1 to win the SEC. I don't know that they should be the favorite, but it does seem to me like there's some value in a bet like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody thinks Auburn, we didn't shoot. I mean, they beat us. They're good, but Tennessee is good, and there's some pretty good. But Alabama's pretty good. Florida, there's some good teams around the conference. We probably have that in the top five. But you take, in the like 7 through 20, conference is pretty balanced and pretty strong.
Oh, it'll be a fun year as long as they can play most of the games, right?
Right. Well, it looks like they're going to play no matter what.
Yeah, I do think that we talked about this a couple weeks ago. I do think we're seeing a sort of a sea change in. Listen, if you're vaccinated, if you're boosted, and you're not sick, let's go play.
Yeah. At my age, I've got to be a little more careful than other people, but the virus may not be done with us, but a lot of people are done with the virus.
Yeah, that's the truth, for better or worse. Speaking of playing the games, a couple of championship games in college football this week. We shake things up and play the FCS championship game Saturday morning. Such a fun game to watch every single year. It's kind of got its own TV window. This year's North Dakota State, and they're obviously the traditional power in FCS. They are laying 7.5 against Montana State.
I'm gonna take the dog. And I don't know. Every time I see North Dakota State wins, all right. I don't know how many times. I'm like you. I kind of like that game. I mean, it's a national championship game, and those kids are playing just as hard as anybody else plays, and quality of football is pretty good.
I mean, listen, North Dakota State beats an FBS team just about every time they play them. So
wouldn't want to play them.
No,
but I'm going to take Montana. I'm going to take Montana State. I got a lot of good friends in Montana. I have more friends in Montana than I do in North Dakota, so I'll take them. A lot of Louisiana people.
That's science right there.
Yes, of course.
So the Bobcats plus 7.5. And then the big game on Monday night in Indianapolis, Alabama and Georgia. The line we're using is Alabama plus 3. It actually at Caesars moved to 2.5 last night because Mattress Mac came in and placed $1.2 million on Alabama. But the line we'll use is Alabama plus 3. Do you take Alabama? They win almost every time they're an underdog, or do you go with revenge and take Georgia?
I got Nick Saban, the mattress man, in points. I guess I got to go there, man.
That's a trifecta.
It'd be like I had a sign, thunderbolt from heaven saying, "Take the Tide."
What else tells you about the Tide? I mean, obviously, every time they're doubted, it seems like they come out and play their best football. Doesn't happen very often, but he's able to use that.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you that number 17 on defense for Georgia, holy moly, that guy is good. I watched that game he played against Michigan. Mm-hmm. He was running all the way across the field tackling people. He's good, but giving Nick Saban points is never a good thing to do.
It's a dangerous game. That's Nakobe Dean, the Butkus Award winner. You're talking about the linebacker. It's a number 17, just fantastic player. So the college football season will wrap up on Monday, and then Sunday the NFL season, the regular season, wraps up, and we've got a 6-pack of games to pick. Actually, 5 of them. Well, the Saints are the 6th. First of all, rate the Saints' chances for us. They're favored, and the Rams are favored. So if both favorites win, Saints get in.
You know, that I looked up. I think we're like 43% on something. You know, I don't know how to figure this out, but it's hard to hit a parlay.
Right.
There's a, you know, it doesn't. If you're if you're a favorite, another team is a favorite, but we got a good chance. Okay, a good chance. But I'm nervous too.
It'll be a fun 3 hours, I think. It just kind of follow in both games.
Yeah, damn right it will. And you know, they're gonna have to play out of the wazoo. But our defense is so good. I like our chances.
Took my 6-year-old to the game on Sunday. His first game, he used his Christmas money. He wanted to buy a Saints ticket, and he
wise young man.
He passed up on cotton candy because he didn't want to miss any of the second quarter. That's how focused he was. So
you're raising that boy right.
A chip off the old block, I guess.
Just say it's going to start asking you about the spread, then you know you've done a good job.
Well, we'll wait on that. Maybe it's 16, not 6.
There you go.
All right, let's pick some games. Cowboys at Eagles. This one's Saturday night. Probably means more for the Cowboys. They could play up into a higher seed. The Eagles are in, have some COVID problems, but they are at home and they are getting 7 points.
I'd give them 7 points.
All right. So we're just to be clear, we're taking the Cowboys and laying the 7. Okay. Next day, the Colts need to win in Jacksonville to get into the playoffs. They're 15.5-point favorites. Nobody thinks they could lose. They have not won in Jacksonville since 2014. So do you lay that many points?
You know, there's a old rule that if you followed it and you followed it a long time, you would make money. That is, anytime a home team gets 10 points in the NFL, you take the home team. All right. Now, Jacksonville is historically bad, but 15.5 is a lot more than 10.
That's right.
All right. And so I'm gonna take Jacksonville. That's a hard thing to get out of your mouth. And I'm taking Jacksonville. I just uttered it. I'm taking Jacksonville.
If they can't play spoiler, maybe they can at least stick within 2 touchdowns. So.
You know, at some level, they're professional athletes.
That's right.
And they have some pride. I mean, I hope that the whole thing doesn't just fall apart, you know.
At the same time as that game, the Steelers are in Baltimore. And if the Colts should lose in Jacksonville, all of a sudden this game becomes tremendously important. Both teams have a pretty good chance of getting in if they win and the Colts lose. And so I think they'll play hard. The Ravens are -5.5. Don't know the status yet of Lamar Jackson. Big Ben had his send-off Monday night, but frankly didn't look like a dangerous quarterback. Where do you go here with Ravens -5.5? Steelers with the points. Okay.
It promises to be a pretty sloppy game, but you win just as much on a sloppy game as a, well-executed game.
They all pay the same.
Right.
Circling back to the Saints, the help they need is from the Rams, who ironically is who they would play if they got in. The Rams are -4.5 at home against San Francisco.
Well, I hate to do this because this is betting against my interests, but I hope that the Rams win by 4.
All right. So we'll take the Niners and the points and hope for a close game.
Right.
And
I'm trying to middle it.
Yeah, that's right. The Saints play at the same time. And then the primetime game is, if the Colts do win against the Jags, the primetime game becomes a win and get in. And that's the LA Chargers -3 in Las Vegas to face the Raiders.
The Chargers, I think, is just better.
All right. And we'll take the Chargers.
That is the things where if I forgot, if they could end up where if that game ended in a tie, both would be in the playoffs.
Right.
There's a scenario that I forgot who it is, but
The Colts have to lose, and then something has
Yeah.
to go with that Steelers-Ravens game. But you're right. There is a situation
Right,
where.
So what do you do? You're in overtime. No one is going to go for. So if you know you are you at the end at the end of overtime, or 1 second left to go, and you score, and it's 24-23, you'd be a fool not to kick the extra point.
No, that's right. I mean, it's. I don't know that both teams would. The disgrace of Gijon is from the 1982 World Cup, where it made the World Cup. They play all the last group games at the same time now to avoid this, because I can't remember the countries it was. Two teams, all they needed was a tie, and they sat there and kicked the ball back and forth for an hour and a half, and that was the game. I don't know that it'll necessarily be that, but you're right. If it does happen to go to overtime and they're in that situation, there are going to to be no risks taken.
No, I mean, and almost I'd be happy to get out of there with a tie. You get in the playoffs. Now, Goodell's going to, call when he got it, but human nature's human nature, man. These guys been playing football all year, and being a playoff team and not being a playoff team makes a huge difference.
Yeah, yep. And it was. I say that I just looked it up. It was West Germany beating Austria 1-0 in that soccer game, and that was the result that got both teams through. So Austria lets West Germany score the first goal, and then they just kicked it around for an hour and a half, and that was the game. And so you hope for the NFL's sake that doesn't happen Sunday night, but it might be interesting.
No, come on, you kind of hope it does happen.
The NFL hopes it doesn't. I hope it does.
I always pull if it doesn't involve the Saints at LSU, I want chaos everywhere. I just
just let something freaky happen.
Yeah, just let something freaky happen. Yeah.
All right, James. Well, we have 1 week left in the Cash In with Carville contest. We'll talk some NFL playoffs next week, and we'll recap the championship game.
Take care, my friend.
All right. Thank you very much. So that's cashing in with Carville for today. And again, you can go to NOLA.com/cashing in and make your picks against Carville. We had a little bit of everything there. We had some FCS football for Jim. We had some World Cup soccer talk. I mean, that was a loaded episode. Jim's on mute. We muted him so he couldn't respond to all that. You can unmute yourself. It's okay.
Just making sure it's okay to talk. I know. We're going on about talk about the FCS, so that I'll definitely have to mute myself for that. But the most interesting thing I thought he said was it kind of relates to something that happened in the Jerry household the other day. He was talking about the Wazoo, and I told my 5-year-old daughter, said she wanted candy. I said she wanted to go get candy at the store. I told her, we have candy at home at the Wazoo, and she says, "What are you talking about? I don't want to go to the Wild Zoo. I want candy." So. Wazoo, Wild Zoo, all the same thing. Right?
I guess that's a term that did not get passed on to the latest generation. Devin, you're a little younger than us. Are you familiar with that term?
Yeah, I've heard it before.
So it's just the youngest generation that doesn't have it yet. All right, okay. Well, anyway, you make your picks against Carville. Thought he made some interesting points there. Let's go ahead and talk some Saints, because that's really what this weekend is going to be about. From a Louisiana perspective, everybody wants to know, can the Saints get in? Okay, first thing, they're 4.5-point favorites against the Falcons. This line's bounced up and down a little bit. It went down as low as 4. In fact, I think it was 4 yesterday. It's back to 4.5. It's interesting because the temptation here, and you're going to see this with a lot of lines this week, the temptation, Jim, is to say, well, one team's got to win the game, so go with them because the other team's got nothing to play for. But that concept is baked into the price. So, if both teams had to win, maybe this is 3.5 or 2.5. Those points are baked in. So you can't just say, oh, they got to win the game, so they'll definitely cover.
Yeah, that's definitely true. This line would probably, in fact, I saw it, I think it was a week or so ago. I saw it at 1.5. So it wasn't that long ago. I saw it at 1.5. But yeah. That number is definitely baked in that the Saints have to win. But when you're looking at it, I think the Saints match up well. And I think not only that, and I know they lost the first game, but the Falcons, they're unlike a lot of the other don't care. I mean, I cannot. I know it's the Saints. I know that a lot of people think, hey, they're going to get up because it's the Saints. They have a chance to kill the Saints' chance, the playoff chances. But I'm not sure a lot of these Falcons think that way. I mean, Matt Ryan maybe because he's been there for a long time, but what's the impetus for a lot of the other players there? We don't know the status of Kyle Pitts. He is banged up. He limped off the field the other day. And without him, or even with him as hobbled, that really hurts the Falcons' offense. The way the Saints have been playing defense, you got to think it's as tough as it is to replicate what they did on defense last week, and especially what they did against Tampa Bay a few weeks ago. They're going to need to have a similar effort to win this game, and I just don't see the Falcons having their hearts in it. And I think this is a good place for the Saints. They haven't been swept by the Falcons in, I think, 5 years, or 4 or 5 years, and they've only been swept by the Falcons twice in the Sean Payton era. So Sean Payton's going to be focused. This team's going to be focused. I think they'll do just enough to cover. I think they win by a touchdown or more, and then it's scoreboard watching.
Yeah, I mean, and it's got to be kind of hard for as players to not pay attention to that Rams game. Maybe at halftime you check the score, see how things are going, and then if things are going well for you, you start to look a little bit more. But it'll be that it'll be high drama. We had to Devin muted himself because of the background noise. I wasn't sure if it was that or just because he's the Atlanta guy in this conversation. But Devin, number one, don't tell us your pick yet, but make the case for the Falcons and why they may be able to stay in this thing and or ruin the Saints season.
I mean, they beat the Saints team already. I know that the Saints were missing some guys. They obviously had Trevor Siemian starting at quarterback, not Taysom Hill, and some key guys will be back for the Saints hopefully this weekend. But the Falcons offensively, I mean, they were right there with Buffalo, right there in the fourth quarter. I think Matt Ryan had a flag on himself that brought back a touchdown that could have cut it into a 7-point game. So, yeah, so they always get in their own way, but they're a team that you have to worry a little bit about. Cordero Patterson's kind of had that coming back to life type of year. He's done a really nice job in both the rushing and receiving game for Atlanta. And although they're without Calvin Ridley still and some of their other top targets, at least Patterson and Pitts will give the Saints fits, and it's definitely something that the Saints struggle with. In the first matchup was giving up big plays, so the Falcons can hit some big plays and get some pressure on Taysom Hill. I mean, this game could very well come down to late in the fourth quarter, and the Saints might have to sneak this one out.
Falcons injury report today. Kyle Pitts did practice. He was out of practice yesterday, limited today, so that would mean he's trending toward playing. We'll see. The final injury report comes out tomorrow. Matt Ryan, frankly, I got this wrong in the preseason. I thought he'd have a pretty good year and that they wouldn't be able to run the ball or play defense, and that's what would be their shortfall. And now they haven't played very good defense, but they run the ball fine. But Matt Ryan, I mean, he's completing not a lot of passes downfield. He's got 19 touchdowns, 11 picks. Jameis Winston had 14 touchdowns in 6.5 games. I mean, not that that's the only stat in the world, but this has just not been a vintage Matt Ryan year. I don't know if that means he's over the hill or if he's just not getting the protection. He seemingly has weapons.
Their offensive line is terrible. I mean, it just is, and that's one big plus for the Saints, and a reason why when you start looking at the injury report, to me the most important name on it is Marcus Davenport. If Marcus Davenport doesn't play, it's going to really hurt the Saints' chances to do what they need to do and get in there and pressure Matt Ryan, which I think is obviously key to this game. When he doesn't get sacked, the Falcons play very well. And it's kind of like you either sack him not at all or you sack him like 5 or 6 times. And I think the Saints need to do what they did against Carolina last week, obviously pressuring Darnold and getting in there 7 times. They're going to need to do the same thing this week. And so the higher the scoring game, the worse it is for the Saints, obviously. So if you like the Saints, you like the under as well. And I think they're going to have to find a way to keep Cordero Patterson under wraps. And if Pitts is hobbled, then obviously you're not as scared of Gage and Zacchaeus and those guys. But again, pressure is the key. You won't see Davenport in there. That's the name I'm going to be watching going the rest of the way. Obviously, along with Ryan Ramczyk and the possibility that he'll play. He's been limited in practice. But the fact that he's even back in practice is a good thing.
Yeah, he's injury report today, limited again. Marcus Davenport, second straight day with no practice, so you would think he would need to get back out there tomorrow to have a chance. And then Mark Ingram downgraded to a DNP today as well. So not that Ingram's going to get a ton of carries, but you like to have him out there when Alvin Kamara needs a breather. So it's I mean, listen, it's something the Saints have dealt with all year. Teron Armstead not practicing, I would be stunned if he played.
He's not playing, yeah.
And that's, that's just something they've had to deal with all year long. If Ryan Ramczyk comes back, you chalk that up to as a bonus, I think, and hope you can get Davenport and really harass that Falcons backfield. Now, if the Saints should win, of course, the other game that they need is for the Rams to beat the 49ers. I would think they caught a break. They did catch a break last week when the Cardinals beat the Cowboys, because it means the Rams need this game to win the NFC West, to get a home playoff game. In fact, if they did it and the Saints won, that home playoff game would be against the Saints. But that certainly beats the alternative for the Rams of going on the road. So how do you handicap this game, Jim? And Niners, obviously a very good team. I think certainly a playoff caliber roster, but they find themselves in a tough spot here.
I went back and forth on this one. And before I really delved into the handing, I probably spent more time yesterday looking at this game than I looked at any other one. But I wanted to take the Rams here, just going over and pouring over everything. And the fact that the 49ers have had the Rams number over and over again 5 times in a row now, I just don't think the Rams match up well with the 49ers. They just don't. And I get that they're playing for a 2 seed, and I get that they're playing for the NFC West, because I really think Arizona is going to beat Seattle. So if the Rams don't win, they go from being the 2 seed to the 5 seed. Major difference. But I cannot overlook that I think the 49ers are a better football team. As we sit here right now, we're not sure who's playing quarterback. It's either going to be Trey Lance or Jimmy Garoppolo, but I'm not sure that it matters. I think that the Rams, Matt Stafford has been just frankly bad last 3 weeks, and he's been average at best over the last 2 months of the season. He's thrown 5 touchdown passes and 6 interceptions over the last 3 weeks, and he's thrown 11 picks over the last 2 months, as opposed to 4 picks the first 2 months. So I don't know what's going on there. They're going to have trouble running the football against the San Francisco front. And the 49ers secondary, which was kind of suspect for a while they were injured, is a lot better than it's been. I like the way the 49ers are playing. Saints fans don't want to hear this, but I think the 49ers win the game outright.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, the 49ers, that defense has taken care of Sean McVay's offense. I mean, Sean McVay's known as the whiz kid and all that kind of stuff. But you're right, that is one team he has struggled against, and it's a – yes, it's a big difference for the Rams to play at home against the Saints or Eagles versus going on the road to face Tampa Bay or Dallas. I mean, that's a big difference. It's a big difference. Or the Cardinals.
Zach, it goes back to what you were talking about with the Saints handicap. Just because it means a ton to the Rams doesn't mean you have to pick the Rams or just automatically pick them. It means, obviously, it means even more to San Francisco, because if they don't win, there's a 70% chance or so that they're not in the playoffs. And so that was, you can guarantee that they're playing it like that.
That was exactly where I was going with it, is as much as it's a difference for the Rams, it's a little bit different when your season's on the line. So you get that little more get up and go in your backside when it means that you might be at home next week versus, okay, well, we got to go on the road and face Tom Brady. That's not good, but at least we get to play. I mean, if push comes to shove in a close game late, I'm not sure that's a good thing for the Saints. Devin, take a look at this matchup for us. Rams -4.5 against the Niners. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't love the spread for the Rams in this game. I just think the 49ers are always playing them close. Like, even if they're not winning the game, they're keeping it within at least a field goal. And honestly, I think this is a 3-point game either way, whoever wins the game. I just think with how much the Rams struggle matching up with the 49ers, the Rams are really going to have to dig deep and find a way to win this game, because Sean McVay has not been good matched up against Kyle Shanahan. He just, for whatever reason, their team is just not as good whenever they're playing against the 49ers. So I think for the Rams, they're going to have to fight for that victory. And if they truly want the 2 seed, it's not going to be an easy game for them to go in and win. Just like Jim said, they don't match up well with the 49ers and their physicality and their style of play. And the Rams, if they want that 2 seed, they're really going to have to pull out all the stops in the fourth quarter. If they're down a couple scores, Are they going to continue to try and win the game, or are they going to wave the white flag and just accept the 5 seed? So I think if it's a really close, if it's a game that favors the 49ers into the fourth quarter, I don't like the Saints' chances if they're hoping the Rams win. If the Rams are down a couple scores heading into the fourth.
And by the way, that also has to do with why I think Dallas and Tampa Bay are really going to go all out to win this week, because if the Rams should lose and fall to that 5 seed, those guys don't want the 4 seed. They want to get up to the 2 or the 3 so that they can avoid playing the Rams in the first round and possibly have a home game in the second round. So Rams -4.5. Saints, by the way, it has ticked back down to -4 at Caesars. And so let's do a final word here. Devin, you first. Do the Saints get into the playoffs? Yes or no?
I think so. I think that the Rams know that they don't want to have to play whoever the 4 seed ends up being, and I just think for their sake I think they would much rather play the Saints and whoever they end up with in the 4 seed. I think the Saints handle business against the Falcons. I think it's kind of similar to how they won the last few weeks. It's a pretty tightly contested game through the first half, and in the second half they start to pull away.
Jim, how about you? I think you gave it away. You said you think the Niners win outright.
Yeah, I mean, my gut tells me no, and I'm going to go with it. And again, the first part of the week, I was thinking, I was confident, I was positive, and then I started looking at things. It's like I said, I just don't like the way I think the Saints handle their part. And I'll be honest, if you're out there betting, I don't know that I bet on the Saints with that spread either, because if the 49ers, I think there's a chance the 49ers even pull away like they did in the first game. And if they do, the Saints start seeing those things. Trust me, they're going to show that in Atlanta. If the 49ers get a lead, every time they lead, they're going to be flashing that on the scoreboard for everybody to see. They're going to want that to happen. I just don't like the Saints' chances. So no, I don't think they get in. I hope I'm wrong, because obviously it makes for our shows more interesting the next couple of weeks, but I don't like their chances.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, and that's a good point about if the Niners get out to a lead. This is a Saints team that has been beat up all year long, has been just busting its butt all year long. But at some point, when you start to look up and see that it's hopeless, that could go away real quick, especially with banged up players. Get them out of there, keep them healthy, and that sort of thing. So, I don't know. I'm going to say no, and the reason I'm going to say no is not necessarily because of one game or the other. I think they both end up being more or less coin flips. Like Devin said, I really think that Niners-Rams game could be a close game. I think Saints-Falcons is a close game. I mean, the Saints are not equipped to blow someone out right now, not without a big kick return or a big pick six or something. Well, okay. They were equipped to blow the Jets out. All right. But even that game, quite frankly, was going into the fourth quarter, it was not over. I mean, what was it, like 19-9 going into the fourth quarter? So, I mean, it could have happened to where the Jets could have come back. So I think, listen, you flip a coin twice and you try to come up heads both times, you got a 25% chance. But I think if I'm betting, which we are at the book, I'm going to say no, they do not get in. So that's what it's come down to. But it'll be interesting, man. But I still think it'll be in the air at 6:00 Sunday evening. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll switch gears real quick here at the book, brought to you by the Caesar Sportsbook. And Nick says, who gets in if Saints and Niners both lose? It would be the Niners at that point. So yeah, you would need
the Niners have a 1-game lead,
and any ties. Any ties would go the Niners' way. You need a Saints win and a Niners loss, and no other combination. So that's the way that has.
What happens in that scenario is if the Niners and Saints lose, the Eagles get the 6th seed.
Yeah, and the Eagles get the 6 if the Saints make it. If the Niners win, they're the 6 and the Eagles are the 7. I believe is the way it goes. So let's switch gears and talk.
Be the 7.
That's right, and they would. And if they get in, the Rams would be the 2 because that means the Rams win. So it would be Saints Rams next weekend.
The only scenario, and you talked about it in odds and ends, I believe. The only scenario for Saints, so you want to get in, but the only scenario for Saints is at Rams, at Packers. If you happen to beat the Rams, that is the only scenario for the Saints.
Yeah, it's a long shot, but you just keep fighting like they've been fighting. So we'll switch gears real quick and talk a little college football. Of course, a big bowl weekend wrapped up last week. We talked some about this on odds and ends, but let's show how our bowl pick'em is doing. Devin Jackson, of course, leads the way as usual. And I just realized I skipped that other slide, Devin, but we'll circle back to that. So Devin at 1285 actually slipped a little bit on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. He had such a huge lead on everybody. I'm doing pretty well at 1159. Jim has fallen below the $1,000 mark. The game that really hurt all three of us, quite frankly, was the Cotton Bowl, Cincinnati and Alabama. Devin saw it as a high-scoring game. Jim and I both thought Cincinnati would stay within shouting distance, and it was just sort of one of those systemic, slow Alabama beatdowns.
Devin.
Yeah, I thought at least if Alabama was going to win the game, I thought they were going to score more than 27 points. I thought it was going to be one of those games. Maybe Alabama goes up a couple scores, throws in some backup. Cincinnati, maybe it's a backdoor cover and raise the total points, but none of that happened. I think I got both of the semifinal games wrong, actually. So I thought that Michigan would cover the spread, and they didn't even get close. So I did not have a good final weekend of a bowl pick'em.
But a good way to bet on sports is to get yourself such a huge stack that even if you have a bad finish, you're above water.
By the way,
Jim,
I'm not sure you added mine up. I'm pretty sure I'm still above 1,000, but we can add that up again later.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought I went back to your latest post and then added in New Year's Day and the LSU K-State game. So that's what I came.
Oh yeah, you know what? I didn't add it in K, but I thought I picked. Did I pick?
You had.
I picked LSU. You're right. I picked LSU.
It's so hard because we made these picks a month ago, or almost a month ago, and so you almost forget what you picked. In fact, I had Michigan in this also, and then the more I thought about it, the more I handicapped it. I thought, now Georgia's going to blow them out, and so I changed. But of course, with this bowl pick'em, we left the picks up as they were.
Yeah, maybe next year it's hard to like get everybody to do them every day, especially during the holidays. But I think next year maybe we find a way to do that because I think this worked out pretty well, and it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, and it goes. Hey, I'm going to give props where props are due in this regatta, this bowl pick'em thing I've been doing for 10 years. I think the highest I've ever finished. There's usually like 500, 600, 700 people that are in it. Top 15 or so make the money. I think the highest I've ever finished is 7th or 8th, and did a pick for Zach this week. And if Georgia wins, you are guaranteed to be no worse than 6th. So you'll beat my own record. So give some props. Shout out to Zach Ewing for his 90-second handicaps.
I love it. Yeah, that didn't take me very long. Of course, we had gone through all this, and I had read up on so many games that it was fairly easy at that point just to send you a series of picks. So, no, but it's a lot of fun, and looking forward to that, and kind of hoping Georgia wins for that.
It goes to show, seriously, if you take your time, and because we did, I think all four of us went in and we studied. I know I did, and Devin knows these teams a lot better than I do. So I knew going in that I needed to spend a lot of time like looking at each matchup, and I probably spent, I don't know, 10 or 15 minutes, even on the Idaho Potato Bowl and stuff, just looking at it. And I spent a lot of time on these picks, and it goes to show if you do your handicap and you look and you find a way that handicapping works for you. It's not the same for everyone, but a lot of these picks we came up with consensus picks for quite a few of them, and I think it's all because we saw the same kind of things, and we did fairly well, I thought.
Yeah, no, we did, and I apologize if I have your total wrong on there. I'm
figure it out in a minute.
Doing it by hand, but we'll update next week after the championship game. In fact, we need to do our final Jeopardy style picks for the college football playoff championship game, which is Monday night. And now this is the line at Caesars. It's Georgia -2.5. Most other books still have it at 3. So if you want to bet at Alabama, you probably want to shop around. But Georgia has now part of the reason Georgia's 2.5 because Mattress Mac, Jim McIngvale, or Mac, I don't even know how to say his last name, McIngvale, I think. The Houston, he owns Gallery Furniture in Houston. He's the Houston furniture magnate, millionaire, billionaire, and he makes these huge sports bets. Well, he made one at Caesars, $1.2 million on Alabama. And part of that was, I believe it was a hedge because he offered some customers in Alabama free mattresses if Alabama won the national title. And so he's done that with the Astros before as well. He's making sure that he covers his own giveaways if he does win. Yeah, exactly. His own wazoo. So the line right now, Georgia -2.5. So if you like Georgia, absolutely, you need to find a Caesar Sportsbook. You need to go down to Harrah's, you need to go up to Bossier. Mobile betting probably not going to be here by Monday, but you got to do it. If you like Alabama, you want to go find a 3 somewhere, I think. But Jim, we talked about this. We both like Georgia.
Yeah, I really do. And I'm trying to look and see what the money line is. The money line hasn't moved, interestingly enough. When it was -3, I really liked the money line at -135 because I thought you were getting value. Now that it's -2.5, I don't know that you're getting the same kind of value. I probably would take Georgia -2.5. But here's the thing: I guess I get this line because they're trying to make sure that not everybody, as it is, the casual better, the square is going to bet on Alabama anyway. But if you think about it, this line just before the SEC championship game was -6.5, and we thought they were trying to entice everyone to bet on Alabama, and maybe they were. So this time, I think it's the other way around. I think they're trying to get as many people to bet on Alabama as they can. I just like Georgia here. I've explained this multiple times. I think that the Bulldogs, although obviously not trying to lose, players go out, they try to win. They do their best effort. But when you're a coaching staff and you think there's a better than 50-50 chance you're going to play this team for the national championship again in a few weeks, I don't think that they showed everything that they were going to show. They're going to come at them with the kitchen sink this time. It's that vanilla defense you saw in that first matchup is going to be a completely different one. Whether it's enough, maybe it's not enough. Maybe Alabama is just that good. We'll find out. But I really like Georgia here, and I think that they win. I don't want to say handily is probably too strong of a word, but I think they show why they have been the number 1 team in the country for almost all year long.
No, I agree with that. I think it's not necessarily that they weren't trying to win, but you're not going to use the ace in the hole if you know you might need it a month down the line. So that may have been the thought process there. We'll talk more about this game on Monday on Odds and Ends. Of course, it's Monday night. We'll talk a lot about it probably Monday. But Devin, real quick, your thoughts on the game, Georgia and Alabama.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot better matchup compared to the SEC championship. I do think Georgia will play better overall and have a better plan in terms of how to attack Alabama. And I think it'll be one of those games that comes down to the wire and right into the fourth quarter, similar to their national championship matchup a couple years ago. I think when you look at Georgia, their defense has to play a lot better than they played Alabama last time. Plus, Alabama will be without John Mechie, so I think they'll be keyed in on Jameson Williams a little bit better as well. So I think this game is going to come down to who executes better in the fourth quarter. And if you're looking at history, it says Alabama, but Georgia, it may be their time to win a championship finally.
Yeah, and the other part of that is Bryce Young played the game of his life in the SEC championship game, and all kudos to him. He won the Heisman Trophy that day. He got a lot of plaudits for it. Can he do that again against the best defense we've seen in years in college football? That's the question, because he's going to have to do it again, and now they're going to be a little bit more ready for what he does. Hey, we'll talk to Leah Vann tonight and get her pick on this game. She is the pro for Beat the Pros. So if you filled out for your New Year's 6 picks, you also have to go back to NOLA.com/beatthepros and bet on the CFP title game. Make sure you do that. See if you can beat Leah. The winner of this contest, or anyone who beats Leah, I should say, gets entered into a drawing for a weekend stay for 2 at Harrah's New Orleans, and come back because we're going to start NFL playoffs next week. That's the second contest for Beat the Pros. There's going to be 6 of them this year, all the way through October, early November, the Major League Baseball playoffs, the World Series. And if you are the winner through all 6 Beat the Pros contests, you win a weekend stay for 2 at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. So the prize kind of goes up, and it's a cool deal. Log on to NOLA.com/beatthepros. Even if you missed the New Year's 6 games, go ahead, bet the CFP title game. You can make it up over 5 contests. You're going to have to take a 0 on the first 6 games. But obviously there's a ton of picks when you talk about March Madness, when you talk about NBA playoffs, Major League Baseball playoffs. So you will have a chance to make up those 5 games. So make sure you get in there and pick this one. Before we get into
Big
eligible? Bucks, we are not eligible, unfortunately.
Oh,
I think Uncle Big Nick would be eligible. He should play.
You should definitely get Uncle Big Nick in there. Somebody needs to be on the floor.
Yeah. I'm waiting for his comment now. We do have a couple of optimistic fans out there. Jerry says the Saints will get in. Robert says the Saints will get in. Again, I'd love to be talking about it this time next week. I'd love to be talking about a Saturday night game in LA or whatever it might be. But at this point,
or a Monday night game.
Monday night game. Yeah, could be. The only thing I know it won't be is the early game Sunday because it's a West Coast game and they wouldn't do that. But it could be any other time slot. 2 on Saturday, 3 on Sunday, and then Monday night. So I hope we're talking about it. I also hope we're talking about a lot of big bucks. But before we play big bucks, I did want to circle back and talk a little college basketball, guys. LSU, a big win on Tuesday. They beat Kentucky. And so I went back and looked at some men's basketball odds on Tuesday or on yesterday after the game, and I was a little surprised. I mentioned it to Carville. LSU was only 8-1, and then I went back and looked today, and they're 12-1 to win the SEC. So I'm trying to figure out that. I'm also trying to figure out how Kentucky is still the favorite. Not that one game matters in an 18-game schedule. You can still win, especially a road game. But these odds seem a little out of whack to me. Are you seeing that too, Jim?
For sure. I mean, I don't understand them at all. And again, I'm with you. I don't necessarily think that LSU is going to be a world beater. I mean, but if you look at what they've done the last 3 years, they have the best. It's hard to believe, but LSU has the best overall record in SEC play the last 3 years combined, and they're good again. The problem for LSU, and as I think that the odds makers see this, when you look at the teams that are at the top of this list, Kentucky, Auburn, Alabama, Tennessee, Florida, LSU has to play all of those teams in January. Their first, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. The first 4 games are against teams on the list above them. And then you go beyond that, they play Alabama, Tennessee again. And so there is no – they don't really have a break in here. They don't have a game that I think that is going to be where they're going to be certainly favored. I think of the games, that if you look on the list of their schedule early on, I think they're only going to probably be favored against maybe Arkansas at home on the 15th and maybe Texas A&M on the 26th. Other than that, they're going to be the underdog. And so LSU's got their work cut out of them. That being said, 12-1 is a pretty good price. I don't like Kentucky at all, and I think you should jump on Auburn right now. To me, I think Auburn is clearly, and even as good as these teams are at the top, I think Auburn's clearly the best team out of this group.
I kind of like an idea of a bet on Auburn and a bet on Alabama. They're both, close to 3-1. Between those two teams, you'd have a pretty good shot. And by the way, there must be money coming in on these on this futures because the odds have bounced back. I'm just looking at it. Auburn's back to plus 270, Kentucky's faded to plus 300, and LSU's back up at plus 800. So I do think LSU hosts Tennessee on Saturday, a big game. They may not be favored, but that one will be real close to a pick 'em. It'll be a point or two, one direction or the other. And so that's one where, look, if you're going to win the conference, you got to win that game. You got to win your home games against the other top teams. They did it against Kentucky. Can they do it against Tennessee?
They've been able to do it in the past. Zach. The last few years, they have been able to win at the PMAC. So that has been their strength. Will Wade has been really good about finding ways to win the game and then winning almost all the games on the road that they're supposed to win. Not necessarily the Alabamas of the world and the Kentuckys and those sorts of games and the Tennessees, but they've been able to win at home and beat the Missouri, beat the South Carolinas, beat the Georgias, and those sorts of things.
Yep. And this year does remind me a little bit of 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I guess it is now. LSU won the SEC because there isn't really a dominant team. I mean, you say Auburn's the favorite, but Auburn's number 11. They kind of bounce up and down. They play some good games, and then they play some games that don't look so good. So there is an opportunity for an underdog to win this league. Devin, I don't know how much SEC basketball you've had a chance to watch, but what are your impressions? Who would you peg as the favorite?
Yeah, I haven't watched a whole bunch, but I did catch a little bit of Auburn's game, and they look real impressive so far. I would probably take them as one of the favorites to win the SEC. Alabama right there with them. Obviously they won the SEC last year, so they're a pretty good basketball team as well. Hoping to catch some more basketball over the coming months. Football's about to start slowing down, so definitely going to tune in to those Tuesday and Wednesday college basketball games.
And by the way, that FCS championship game is over, baby.
Heck yeah! But by the way, speaking of basketball, the Pelicans play the Warriors tonight. They started the year with Bucks. Who was it? Bucks, Nets, Suns, and now Warriors, which is and they were playing pretty well, but they ran into 3 buzzsaws. However, actually, I think it was the Jazz, not the Nets, but either way, they lost all 3 of them. But they are actually favored by a point at the Smoothie King Center against Golden State tonight. Golden State without Draymond Green, no Steph Curry. It's a knee injury for Curry and just a rest day for Draymond on a back-to-back. So they could get this win and get through that stretch at 1-3. At this point, you're just trying to tread water. They have a chance to get into that play, and if Zion can come back, there's a lot of ifs there. But at this point, you just need every win you can get. The Pelicans are favored by a point tonight against
Zach. How would you like to be a
State.
fan with the ticket? You bought the ticket because you're going to see Steph play, and then you find out he's not. That's a bummer,
No
man.
Steph,
I know you
no
want the
Clay,
Pels to
no
win.
Green. I know.
That's a
Yeah,
bummer.
I thought about that too, and I want to take my boys to go see LeBron when he's in town in March 27th, I think it is. But what if he doesn't play? I mean, if it's a back-to-back or something, you've got to pay attention to that.
Oh, there's a good chance AD doesn't play because he only plays about half his games anyway. So
yeah, well, that's true. And if there's a game he'd want to sit out, he doesn't want to hear the boos. So, all right, we're running out of time. Let's play Big Bucks. Last week's results, kind of a mixed bag for all three of us. I was a little bit below 500. You guys were a little bit above. Jim won. I think this is the second week you won, Jim.
second, no, come on, I've won more than 2 weeks.
I don't think so. I don't think
I
no.
definitely have won more than 2
okay,
weeks.
you talk about your picks. I'm going back to look. I don't think.
Okay, you go back and look. All right, I've been doing pretty well with my teasers. Last week, to me, the Bears was an easy one. The Giants are just terrible, and you'll see that in my picks again in a minute. The Saints obviously had to sweat out whether they would cover or not, but I thought the Saints would come out and play well, and they did. They didn't play great on offense, but their defense is just, Sam Donald, terrible. So I really liked that teaser last week. I'd have put more money on it if I had it. Lose the Bills on that hook, damn hook. It'll get you every time. And actually, in real life, big boy betting, I actually bought the hook, so it ended up being a push for me. So I probably should have done that here in big bucks as well. I hate doing that when you're talking about early in the week and weird things can happen with COVID and all that stuff. So I've been doing better as of late, but too little, too late. I was trying to catch that Devin train that was going to nowhere.
Yeah. Well, listen, part of the reason, and so I went back and looked. You've won 3 weeks. One of them was by $1 over Devin, and then you won 2 others. So.
Oh, I thought you meant winning weeks. I thought you meant
no. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I meant like between the three of us. But Devin is the reason. I probably only won 4 or 5 weeks, and the other 10 have been Devin. So, yeah, it's been a slog, but Devin's doing real well. All right, our best bets for this week. This is your platform, Devin Jackson. This is your pedestal. Sell us on the Montana State Bobcats in that FCS championship game.
When you look at some of the teams they've taken down on the way to the FCS championship, they took down a Sam Houston State team that was incredibly explosive. They were actually in the FCS championship in the spring and had an explosive offense. Montana State shut them down a couple weeks ago when Montana State played in the semifinal. They did the same thing. I really like Montana State's defense. I think they have a couple future NFL players on the team, and especially a linebacker. His name's Troy Anderson. He does a really good job covering in space, chasing down ball carriers. He does a little bit of everything for that defense. They have a pass rush that has 16 or 17 sacks on the season. I really like their defense going up against the North Dakota State offense that, frankly, hasn't done a whole bunch in the last few weeks. Their semifinal game against James Madison, I think they only put up, 17 or 20 points. So I really like Montana State's defense. And then I think Montana State offensively, they have a big play receiver and their quarterback. I think his name is Tommy Malott. They're comparing him to Taysom Hill. He's a Taysom Hill type quarterback. So it's a very, very fun matchup, but I really like Montana State to cover it, and I think they have a really good chance of winning the game outright.
Jim, you got anything to add to that, man? How'd your coin flip turn out?
It landed on North Dakota State, so even the coin can't beat Devin Jackson. It's really it's really bad. George Washington does not have a good record against Devin Jackson. I'll just put it that way. I like Georgia here, and again, when I made this money line pick, it was 3, and I thought like I said earlier, I think you were getting really good value at -135. Now it's kind of iffy. I still like the money line here because I think this is going to end up being some kind of weird score. Now, full disclosure, because of my future bet and your great regatta picks, if Georgia wins, I'm going to have a very nice Monday night. Let's put it that way. So I have already hedged Alabama +3, but not for a ton. So just to make it clear, I think Georgia's by far the better team. I really do. I think, and I'm not just saying this. I know that they got creamed the first time. I went into the reasons. I think Kirby Smart is not that you need any extra motivation in a national championship game, but I mean, people get tired of hearing you can't beat your old boss, you can't beat your old boss. I think Georgia's going to be super physical. They played like they are a team on a mission against Michigan. Alabama just kind of went through the motions, and I know it's different in the national championship game, but I think Georgia is fired up and ready to go, and I think they're going to look kind of like LSU looked a couple years ago in the national championship. They're a team on a mission, and they're the team of destiny, I believe.
Yeah. Before we move on to our picks, we're running a little bit out of time, but I did want to get to a quick comment from Vernon here. Will Zion be a Pelican? I would be absolutely positively stunned if they traded him. You don't think he'll be a Pelican?
No. I just think that at some point you've had enough, right?
They're not trading him at the lowest of his value, though. That's just terrible business.
I just have a weird feeling, and I don't know what it's going to be, but I just have a weird feeling that he's not going to be a Pelican next year. Whether it's the same thing that we're going through this year and some injury keeps him out or whatever it is, I just have a feeling he's not going to be dressed out in a Pelicans uniform next year.
I would be stunned if that happened, but we shall see. So, all right. Big Bucks picks. Devin, we talked about Montana State covering the touchdown against the mighty Bison. What else you like?
A few divisional games that I kind of like the underdog in. One being the Steelers, 5.5 point dogs against the Ravens. I just don't see that game being more than a 3-point game. I do think the Steelers cover the spread. I think the Ravens end up winning the game, but I like the Steelers to cover that spread. Same with Dolphins and Patriots. Dolphins may be out of the playoff hunt, but I think they still have something to play for. They still want to beat the Patriots. Have historically played the Patriots very close over the years, and I think that's the case again on Sunday. So I'm going with the Dolphins there. And then in the national championship game, you guys are both picking towards Georgia. I'm taking the under 52. I do think that neither team is going to be overly explosive on Monday night in that championship game. And I think it'll be somewhat similar to a couple years ago when I think Alabama won 26-23. I feel like it's that type of game where both teams are going to have good plans on either side, but I think ultimately Georgia will make enough plays to win the game, but I do think it hits the under in that national championship game.
It does feel like it could be kind of a cage match, especially early. Both teams trying not to make the big mistake. Jim, kind of doled out your dollars here, had to play a little budget game. What'd you come up with?
First off, to Devin's under pick on Cincinnati and Cleveland with no one playing. The weather in Cleveland on Sunday, a mix of rain and snow, temps in the 30s and winds at 20 miles an hour. Get on that under train now. That is a great pick. I probably wish I would have done it in big bucks because no one's going to care. My biggest pick, we've already talked about Georgia, but here's my teaser of the week. Again, I've been doing fairly well with them. I'm going to go with the football team over the Giants. Again, the Giants, you want to talk about limping to the finish line. I'm not sure Joe Judge is going to make it through this whole mess. I love the football team. I think they're going to play hard for Ron Rivera. I think they're going to play like they care. And so I really like them there. And we talked about it earlier, Cardinals against the Seahawks basically have to win this team. I think the Cardinals, they opened their door by winning, by beating Dallas last week in an upset. I think they're going to be super focused. The Seahawks, and I said it with Uncle Big Nick and tomorrow's Datitude, I think the Seahawks basically had their bowl game last week. Russ Wilson will not be a Seahawk next year, maybe a Saint, who knows. I don't think Pete Carroll will be on the sideline. I think the Seahawks are pretty much done, waiting to get the season over with. And meanwhile, Vikings, I just don't understand this line at all. The Vikings are so much better than the Bears in 3.5. Playing at home, given just 3.5, the Bears are going to probably mailing it in. They're putting Fields back in at quarterback. Meanwhile, the Vikings will have all their studs except for Adam Thielen. They're going to have Kirk Cousins back there. Dalvin Cook said he can't wait to play. He's playing for Coach Detmer and for his father. I think the Vikings steamroll the Bears here. That's one of my top plays of the week.
Yeah, I mean, I like that pick too. And by the way, I also have Browns Bengals under. The Vikings were 6.5-point favorites in Chicago 3 weeks ago.
It
What's
makes
the difference?
No sense.
What's
This line makes zero sense.
They've already said they're playing their starters. I don't hate the Bears as much as some people do. I still believe in Justin Fields long term, but that line doesn't make any sense. In fact, you see me I took that too. Also took Browns Bengals under. We talked about Georgia. We talked about the Niners. I like that pick. And then the other two, I actually go the other way besides Devin here. The Steelers on short rest. I know they still have a 2% chance at the playoffs. The Steelers wasted everything they got. They emptied the tank on Monday night. It's a short week. The Ravens still, Lamar Jackson, if he comes back, this line could be 7, honestly. Even if he doesn't, if it's Tyler Huntley, I think the Ravens get enough offense. The Steelers defense not very good against anybody besides the Browns. And then Jaguars Colts, this is kind of a trend play. The Colts don't play well down there, but it's also just kind of the Colts need to win that game, and they know they need to win that game. But again, this line, if it's played 3 weeks ago, is like 13.5. People buy way too much into they have to win. Well, if they had won last week, they'd have been in the playoffs, and they lost to 7-point favorites at home to the Raiders. So why are they laying 15.5 points here? I think they'll win, but I think it's going to be like a really cagey game where they just kind of make sure they do enough and win 24-16 or something, and just kind of get into the playoffs and make sure that they get the job done. But I don't see a blowout here. It's the Jaguars. So like Carvel said, it's hard to say that Jaguars with the points, but that's too many points.
Bad news for you, Zach. I agree with most of your picks except for the Ravens.
Oh,
you're in trouble.
Oh,
yeah,
boy.
You're in deep doo-doo.
Well, I did agree with Devin on at least one, so I won't go over. You won't go over if you get the Caesars app and get our bonus, $100 bonus. You'll start with $100 in your account, NOLA.com/Caesars. Do that, and we will be back on Monday with odds and ends at 4 o'clock live on these same channels. And boy, we got a lot to talk about. We'll talk about the NFL weekend. We'll talk some playoff matchups, and we will talk national championship game, which is Monday night. So for Devin Jackson and Jim Derry, this has been At the Book on bet.nola.com. Have a good weekend.